All right, speaking of always in, should we get to the main event of the program? The Bloodline saga continues on SmackDown from June the 2nd. And by the way, I know the ratings were giant for the last segment. I'm not sure where they started and where they finished, but maybe you can ask Thurston Howell the third while we're talking about this, if we got SmackDown numbers.
I don't think we have them yet just because of the weekend.
It's the weekend. The Fast National Overnight said something like 2.7 million for the Bloodline segment, the big blow up. We'll see if that holds true. But anyway, did you love the Roman Reigns package where they, celebrating his 1,000 days because this is the night of the celebration, but all of the reigns that he's surpassed, and they included all world champions, not just the WWF or even WWF. And you guys, the Whipper Billy Watson, Dick Hutton was in there.
CM Punk was in there.
Punk, well, yeah, I figured they'd take any chance they could to show him being outlasted or whatever. But I'm thinking they really went deep in that thing and tried to be completists to go for Billy Watson and Dick Hutton.
Dale TNT Mann was in there.
No, he was not. For heaven's sake, he actually, I think his run as, what was it, fucking Kentucky mid-heavyweight champion or something may have been interrupted several times.
How many days did the Sheik hold the U.S. title for?
Well, how many days have there been in the century? But this is a world title, so they can get around that. But then you saw the treat. Well, it was a treat. It was a treat to see his tweet that Brian Solomon put out. Just for perspective, Bruno was champion for what, a total of 2,800 days, and defended on average every 4 days during the time he held the belt. And I think Backlund's average was every 2 days over, what was it, 1,800 or 2,000 days or whatever. And I'm not knocking him because it's a different time. I know that. But Roman has had like as many defenses in 1,000 days as the guys used to have in like 2 months. So it was perspective.
I wonder how different Bruno's number is for the first reign. If you take the second reign out and just do each reign separately in terms of the amount of days he worked during the reign. Because when he came back is when he had that sweetheart deal if he can kind of really do whatever he wanted.
I would think it would be front loaded. The first 8 years, he was probably defending almost every night. And then the second run, maybe with 3 times a week, maybe something like that.
And again, he turned down the NWA title when they wanted him to win it because he didn't want, well, according to Bruno, because he didn't want to work more days. He wanted to work less days.
Well, yeah, but also there was the problem that Thez wasn't going to put him over unless he got his way either. So it was a moot point, over that. But anyhow, SmackDown started with Austin Theory in the ring doing a promo, and he's starting to have fun as a heel. And I like that cute little Southern accent. He's almost lost, but he's still got a little bit of it. It comes out in him. But he says if you combine his reign with Roman Reigns' reign, you'd have 1,209 days. But he's going to have 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 as U.S. champion. He's going to do it as long as he wants to. And then he brings out Pretty Deadly. And I'm like, oh, shit. And they figure into this thing because they beat up the Brawling Brutes last week, and they did some silly interaction with Theory for about 30 seconds. And then the Brutes music played. And I said, well, I see where this is headed, and I'm moving on. Because they immediately went into a 6-man tag team match with Austin Theory and Pretty fucking Deadly, who looked pretty fucking ridiculous, against the Brawling Brutes. And by the time this thing, with the whole segment, the interview, the 6-man tag, multiple breaks, etc., by the time they got out of there, and Pretty Deadly at least won, they did a double team on Ridge, and Theory pinned him. So Theory got the pin, but at least they were on the winning side. But we were 30 minutes into the program. And I like my boy Theory, but not that much. Comments?
I started watching with Theory doing the promo because, I want to see how he grows. We didn't really talk about it. I'll probably ask you on the next drive-thru. But Cena did an interview recently. I read comments from where he talked about how he was shooting on Theory in a way with what he was saying to him in the ring. That he
Remember us? Yeah, and poor old Theory kind of stood there and got slapped around and took it.
He said he didn't believe him. So I think what we're seeing right now is him kind of growing into himself. They brought out Pretty Deadly, and I was conflicted because we are hearing from some of the listeners who do say, give them a chance. They're pretty good, but they look so ridiculous. And they act ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then they're in a match with you. See, you hit the nail on the head. Immediately, they're setting up a 6-man match. Here it comes. Who will it be against? Oh, that's right. They're talking about the Brutes. And it went right into that. It was completely predictable. I think a kid could have picked up on where they were going. I didn't stay for the match.
Very good. So they had a package from the Night of Champions on the tag team title picture and the Bloodline, etc. And Paul Lee was back there sweet talking solo, said we need to make tonight special for Roman and make sure that, everything's good. And he's going to be talking to Pierce and make sure that the Usos are not there tonight to spoil this situation. And then, and we'll get back to that, you had to watch Gallows and Anderson against Skid Row for the morbid curiosity.
I wanted to see Gallows and Top Dollar in there together, so I did watch it. Plus, I admit, B-Fab is a good-looking woman walking around ringside. She never wrestles anymore. She just walks around ringside, so I'll watch.
That's the best place for her from what I've seen of her wrestling, but as a matter of fact, she's like one of those kids back when I was in the locker room all the time. When I was a veteran, the young kids would come up and say, Mr. Cornette, did you see my last match? And I'd say, son, I certainly hope so. But anyway, they've smartened up to Skid Row now, though, because they don't get an entrance and they're keeping Flop Dollar mostly out of the picture. Last few times, one time he didn't tag in at all. But at the same time, it's so fascinating to watch him, especially because they're trying so hard to act like they're over. And even the announcers on the company-sanctioned broadcast make fun of him. Flop Dollar especially, he works like his arms and legs aren't connected to his body properly. It's like they're on sideways or twisted or something, and they move at an unnatural angle. He looks like a 40-year-old basketball dad. So, did you see B-Fab's punch, by the way?
I did.
Did you see how much space was in between her fist and the guy's face?
It may not have been B-Fabulous, but I saw the B-Fab punch.
So anyway, Gallows and Anderson beat him in about 3 minutes. And Flop didn't get to feed on the comeback. He got booted off the apron. But then after the pin, Flop comes in and blindsides Gallows and Anderson and somehow manages to fucking awkwardly shove them out of the ring so that he can turn around and AJ can hit him with the phenomenal forearm. And down he went, and all the kids at ringside were playing in his shade.
I have a suggestion to make this all more palatable. Get rid of Gallows and Anderson, put AJ with Hit Row.
I'm just thinking of the different personalities. I've never met any of the Skid Row folks, but I've know AJ. And I bet you they none of them would have a lot to talk about.
There you go. That's what WWE likes. Funny, wacky comedy segments like AJ goes into the studio to record a rap album with Hit Row as new friends. And it sucks because AJ can't rap.
Moving along.
But we get rid of Gallows and Anderson. Look on the positive side. Because do you like any of their matches?
Well, I used to, but it's been rough here for quite a while now.
I used to love her, but it's all over now.
But it's all over. This show ain't over, and I'm trying to make it so. We're moving along. So Pierce and Paulie are in the back, and the Usos travel, Adam says, has been canceled. Security has been doubled in case they try anything. So I'm sure he meant that their travel was canceled earlier in the day because it's already fucking going on, 9 o'clock Eastern. If they'd taken an early morning flight, they could have thwarted that. But nevertheless, then we get the Grayson Waller effect again. this unknown nerd, for some reason, gets a talk segment. Roddy Piper had been in the business for 10 years before they gave him Piper's Pit. And as we mentioned before, it was 3 minutes tops.
And he was recognized as the best talker in the business by many.
Yes. So now this guy gets 20 minutes, and you better recognize he ain't recognized. So it's with Oscar. And again, I'm going to ask you, before we talk about who all comes out and the mess this becomes, how is this not on somebody's radar as stereotypical or even downright racist to the Japanese people, the way that she is, I don't know, told to act or encouraged to act or written for to act, or what the fuck? It's like she's grunting and squealing and trying to shit when she's impacted. And it sounds like the bad 60s, Godzilla movies dubbed over. What the fuck is going on with this?
I don't know. And you've raised this issue several times, and it's one of those weird things where I'll admit, I like Asuka, and it came out here and I thought about it. So, I mean, you bringing it up here isn't outrageous. It seems a bit over the top. And if anyone
screaming and sticking their tongues out at each other when Io Sky comes out and acting like they're about to throw up.
I think if anyone else behaved like that, people would accuse them of being, stereotypically impersonating someone. But unless one of these women come out and say we were told to do this and we hate it and it was stereotypical, I don't think anyone's raising a stink.
It would be like if they asked Bobby Lashley to talk like Uncle Remus, wouldn't it?
And I wouldn't put that past WWE.
Well, but all right. So on this talk program, random graphics and questions from supposed people on Twitter or something are scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And as I mentioned, he's talking to Oscar and she's talking Japanese, and he's acting like he understands what's going on. And here comes Io Sky. And they have an argument, Io and Oscar, in Japanese. Did you see the tweet that somebody put out with graphics of the English translation?
You know what? I didn't, because I saw that tweet before I watched SmackDown, and I thought it was from the previous interaction they had on Raw a long time ago. I didn't realize it was a new thing, so I didn't see the translation yet.
No, well, I can't remember. I can't quote everything from memory, but I do remember that apparently Io Sky was screaming "piece of shit" in Japanese about 8 or 10 times.
See, I like her. Io Sky's great.
And fucking Oscar said, "You stupid," and Io said, "You piece of shit, stupid, piece of shit, stupid, piece of shit." So then here comes Bayley, and by now, in case you're wondering, folks, they're having a women's Money in the Bank ladder match also. It's that time of year again. It's coming up. They've had the men's qualifying match. They're going to have a women's. So at that event, we have to watch 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, like we have to watch 2 Royal Rumbles and 2 of this and 2 of that. And they're going to put the girls on before the guys just to take the edge off the fucking guys. But so anyway, here comes Bayley.
And here's the problem, too. You talk about predictable segments. As soon as you saw that they were building up Money in the Bank and there was one person out there and a second person, you knew there was going to be 5 more people coming out.
And here comes Shotzi. And then here comes Lacey Evans, who has come back from limbo or the Forbidden Zone.
Camp Pendleton.
Camp Pendleton. Yeah, well, she's wearing Slaughter's hat now. If you gave her a chin implant, she would look like Sergeant Slaughter's daughter. Slaughter's daughter. That's what they ought to. There she is, Slaughter's daughter.
That's good.
See, I just come up with it like that. It's a talent.
That's really good. Slaughter's daughter. I like that. Trademark.
And then here came Zelina. Zelina's out. Everybody wants the Money in the Bank, so all of them are arguing, but Oscar has left and gone to the entranceway so that the rest of the girls can scream at each other in their various dialects or whatever. But suddenly Bianca attacks Oscar in the entranceway, and we have a big pull apart there with all the agents and the blah, blah, blah. And I was like, at this point, I said, this should be on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. because it's like a bunch of people out there just screaming at each other, and then a cat fight with, 18 people trying to play. It's just, and we got to see how many women is in this? Six
I think
women
6.
ladder match. Fucking hell.
The sad thing is, I'm so primed to see something with Io Sky coming out of that. We haven't seen anything with her since that Puerto Rico match. Nothing.
Well, we ain't going to see anything now because it's going to be a ladder match with 6 of them.
That's the problem. I would like to see her and Asuka one-on-one. That may be really good. I'd like to see her against Bianca again. I'd like to see her against a lot of people. Instead, she's going to be one of a number of people in this match. And yeah, I hate these segments where you just know music's going to play and one person, then another person, then another person's going to come out.
Well, and speaking of which, after they got all that cleared, they came back from the break. Zelina and Lacey were still in the ring. Apparently, they had been out there for almost 10 minutes since that last segment blew up. And then they have a match, and Zelina beats Lacey in about 2 minutes. Zelina is a foot shorter and who knows how many pounds lighter. And this fucking Lacey, she's pissing some people off. I mean, I don't know what to say. So, again then, there's one other thing I saw before we get to the Bloodline.
If she's doing Slaughter's daughter, they got to give her privates. Just so she can do the famous line, "Let me introduce you to my privates." And there they are.
Well, hey, in that case, if I was the booker, I would then book myself into a spot where I am a corporal.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm saying I'm a corporal, and I come in and tell Lacey Evans that I'm here to inspect her privates. So anyway, another of the Money in the Bank qualifying matches was LA Knight against Montez Ford. And okay, LA Knight, come on, I'm pulling for you, baby. I'm going to watch this, right? And they rang the bell. It's an hour and 20 minutes into the show. We've had that one long 6-man and 2 2-minute squash matches. So, and maybe these guys both athletic, blah, blah, blah. Remember I brought up the situation with Oscar and Io and the way that they have really every Japanese talent on the WWE roster for how many years? Can you think? They're always goofy or acting in some male, female, whatever. Again, I will make this observation. Isn't it somewhat racist that all the black tag teams either have to dress like basketball players or have gimmicks where they dance or sing or rap or drink out of cups? Is that not somewhat stereotypical?
I mean, whenever I see someone drink out of a cup, I say, "Oh, this is stereotypically black." Drinking out of the cups may not be on that list.
Well, no, it's a thing. The red Sola, they had an article about this a few years ago when they first started doing that on one of the websites. The red cups was a thing that they were doing in the hood with either some type of, I can't remember whether it was an alcohol or some type of something they were drinking.
I think if WWE's telling them to behave a certain way, you have something. If they're saying the red cups are part of culture, we're going to bring that into what we're doing to connect with the culture, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
But we don't know.
All of the black talent that I booked in OVW on WWE's behalf had gimmicks or dressed or spoke in a way that they could have been black, red, green, purple, whatever. Shelton Benjamin, Elijah Burke, Mark Henry, Jazz. I never felt the need to put anybody in a fucking basketball outfit.
Laster Lashley.
There you go. He cut quite a trim figure back then. Of course, he hadn't changed in 20 years.
That's right.
Still in great shape. But anyway, so they opened this match, LA Knight and Montez Ford, with wrestling. I think LA Knight's smoother and he a little bit more on the ball with wrestling because he's more experienced. He's worked outside the WWE system. Ford is very athletic. He's just not as LA Knight is a bit more of a wrestler than most of the talent that they have, so they don't have as much experience working with a wrestler as they do with people that were trained in the Performance Center. And again, they went 2 minutes to break. When they came back, I will talk about they did this from the start. The LA Knight's the heel, Montez Ford's the babyface. Every time that LA Knight does anything offensive, the people fucking cheer, and every time Ford gets anything at all on LA Knight, they boo. And even when they were trading punches, LA Knight was the yay and Ford was the boo. And because they set all these matches up beforehand and approve them or whatever the fuck, LA Knight was losing all the exchanges because he was the heel and that was the way the match was designed, but the fans weren't digging that. And I would think if he'd have been able to, he might have, LA Knight should have been calling a match, but it was predetermined, predestined. But in the old days, you'd switch around a little bit. I'm not talking about just the babyface suddenly switch heel and vice versa, but you would have switched around a little bit to let the heel give the babyface a few more bumps because the people were wanting to fucking like it. But anyway, instead it was mostly Ford kicking the shit out of LA Knight while the fans chanted LA Knight. And then after a back and forth, LA Knight rolls him up, the O'Connor roll up, and they're next to the ropes. And I've seen him do this before, and his timing is great. He rolls up, the referee goes down to count 1, he grabs the middle rope, 2, 3, and he bails right out. Big cheers for the heel cheating to beat the babyface. If this is by design, and LA Knight got almost no offense, at least in the match we saw on the air. They went through a break. Maybe it was during the commercial. But if this is somehow planned to be this way, this is the strangest push in the history of wrestling. And no matter how much they like him, the fans, I mean, they either beat him or he wins by the skin of his teeth and generally gets fucking the short end of the stick on everything. And people cheer for him because they want to.
I don't know what to add to that. Good match. Both guys really talented. LA Knight stands out. If you're flipping past the channels, I have to think if you're going past like an AEW or something, or even a lot of the times WWE TV, it just seems like random people jumping in the air. LA Knight seems like a wrestler and he gets your attention. There's an intangible that you can't teach people, just there's something wiry about him. You can't take your eyes off him. And that's despite the booking, which hasn't done him any favors. Although this is the only guy that survived Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt died. This guy lived. And the pop at the finish was telling. This is an organization that likes to sweeten the sound even on live shows. There was no hiding that. The people want more from LA Knight than the way he's being presented. And that goes away if this continues the way it is. Then it turns into Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah.
They got to do something. There's no reason not to capitalize on something with him, whether it's he has to win Money in the Bank or whether it's something else. This is a guy who does good promos, has good matches. The people are into him. Push him. Do something more with him.
I can understand if the roster was still Rock, Austin, Undertaker, Triple H, Foley, whatever, but it's not. So take a fucking chance on somebody. And they at this point, you don't have to wait for the next Steve Austin. They're about to be ready for the next Taka Michinoku at this rate. Anyway, Triple H then came out for the main event segment, which lasted 2 segments before we could get it all in, but he gave Roman the big introduction, talked about, the 1,000-day reign. He put him on a level of Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan, and then introduced him as a man that you'll tell your kids and grandkids about. So you can tell Triple H is loving to stir people up a little bit by praising a heel. It was like his chance to halfway be heelish again. And then here comes Roman with Paul and Solo, and obviously the Usos' travel was canceled. We heard earlier from Adam Pearce at Heyman's request. They've doubled security at the building. And Triple H presented Roman with the brand new Undisputed Universal title belt. So the two belts that he had before had the big W with a blue background and the big W with a black background. And now this one looks exactly the same, except it's a big W with a gold background.
I was really hoping they were done with that design because it looks so stupid. All it does is promote the brand. It doesn't say anything about the championship or the wrestler. It's just about, look at our logo. And I was really hoping they were done with that, but no. More of the same.
No.
Ugly belt.
But also, is he the undisputed Universal Champion? Isn't Seth Franklin Rollins disputing that?
No.
Because he's the new World Heavyweight Champion?
That's right, World, not Universe. The Universe is only reigned by Roman Reigns. Seth Rollins has this little green planet.
I thought it was a little blue marble.
Harley Race called it God's green earth.
Well, but there is no God. Whereas there are marbles.
You're lucky you're saying this now. Harley Race isn't here to defend himself.
Well, that's why I'm saying it.
He might light Castle Cornette on fire and ask for a job.
I'd give him a job. I'm putting out the fire. Anyway, so Roman then holds the belt up and milks the acknowledge me and gets a big pop. And before he can speak, Usos music. And here come the Usos. Brian, where was the security?
I don't know. Apparently there were extra security supposed to be there.
I bought that they can buy their own plane tickets, but where was they said they doubled security. There is no security. How did they get in? All right, anyway. So they go to the break at this point. I'm thinking, what the fuck? You've got goddamn, the Indians are charging down the hill at Custer, and this is a time to fucking sell douche products? But anyway, we come back, and we're in the ring, and the Usos are face-to-face with Roman Reigns. And Roman starts out telling Jay, kick Jimmy in the face. Do to him what he did. You know, that's what he did to me, so fix this. And Jay won't do it. And he keeps ordering him, kick your brother in the face. And he just pacing around, he won't do it. And Jimmy jumps in, and he did a heck of a promo here. He said, the only one that needs fixing is you, Roman. I did what I did because I was being a brother. With love and respect. You ain't been a good brother. You manipulated. You betrayed us. You've gone crazy. These are my brothers. Solo, that's what he's going to do to you, what he did to us when he's finished with you. He laid the whole thing out, right? And did a great job. Great stuff. And then Roman gets a chance to fire back that he made everybody. And that's why the bloodline's where it's at, because of him, and he's the leader. And he said, look at your brother, ask Solo, who are you loyal to? And you see Solo thinking about it. And then he says, I acknowledge you, my tribal chief. But then he says, but these two are my brothers. And Solo walks from Roman's side to stand with the Usos, and the people are going crazy. And now Roman's facials are, he's thinking about this. He's conflicted. He's pissed off. He don't know what to do. Paul's over there shitting himself. And then Jimmy, he pitches the fucking thing. He says, do you want to run this together? Or do you want to be on the island of relevancy all by yourself? We can do this together. You know, blah, 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 right? And Roman tells Jimmy to shut up, and Jimmy pie faces Roman. And then the people by now are chanting holy shit to the point where all audio is muted for about 10 or 15 seconds. I'm thinking, oh God, they got to shut the people up so we can hear what's going on. And then Jay calms them down. Not like this. I need you both. We're better than this. We can't do this. That's when Jimmy calms down and says, we're stronger together. These are my brothers, but so are you. So be our brother. Let's do this together. We're family. We're still the ones, right? That's the big question. And Roman anguishes over it. And he's thinking, and he's rubbing his face, and then he hugs Jimmy. And the people cheer like crazy. And you see a close-up of Roman, and he's crying. And it's emotional, and there's a long, prolonged hug. And then Roman's face goes blank, and he's still got the microphone. He shakes his head, and he says, no. That was the answer to the question. We're still the ones, right? No. He backs off from Jimmy with a stern look, and Solo spikes Jimmy. Holy shit. Down goes Jimmy. And Jay's checking on him, and Roman shakes his head and walks out. And Solo stares at his brothers and then leaves with Roman. And they all get to the top of the entranceway while Jay's still checking on Jimmy, and not even on microphone, but just in the camera. Paul asks Roman, what about Jay? And Roman says he's going to do what he always does. He'll fall in line. And scene. So what an amazing, dramatic play on this week's Inside the Actors Studio. It ain't wrestling, but what the fuck? None of the other shit is either. At least this is good. What'd you think? Old Brian Last?
I like the Usos acting more than even their wrestling, I got to be honest with you.
Yes.
I think Jey Uso's fantastic, and Jimmy Uso just recently has really come into his own. Solo's been great. You know, as this was happening, your mind starts going to all the possible options. What if Solo turns on his brothers? What if Solo goes after Roman Reigns? What if Roman walks out of the ring and says, I'll do something else? Shows up next week with Jacob Fatu. Lots of different options came into my mind. It's intriguing. You want more. You have to wait for more. And you don't know where they're going to go. I will say, to their credit, I think they've successfully gotten everyone past the idea that Cody didn't get the belt from Roman at WrestleMania. No one's focusing on that anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the next chapter is. I'm still intrigued. I think they probably have to introduce someone or some kind of new dynamic into this soon, just because it's the same. Now it's the same 5 people every week. So something has to happen.
Jacob Fatu. That'd be badass.
What would Vince change his name to? That's the problem.
Oh, God. Probably Peter the Pumpkin Eater, knowing Vince. I don't know, but it's not going to happen anyway, or it'd happen by now. But nevertheless, that was SmackDown.